It was supposed to be an ordinary afternoon at the Metropolitan First Bank. Customers bustled in and out, clerks processed transactions, and the security guard on duty, Robert Finch, kept a watchful eye on everyone who entered. But that day, something happened that no one in the bank would ever forget. It all started when a man walked in, tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in a simple yet elegant navy blue suit. His presence commanded attention, but it wasn't his attire that made the room fall silent. It was the color of his skin. Finch, a middle-aged, no-nonsense guard with years of experience, stiffened the moment he saw the man. His instincts weren't honed by logic but by prejudice, and in his mind, a black man walking into an elite bank in a suit that looked more expensive than his entire month's salary was a red flag. The man strode confidently to the teller, unaware of the hostile glare fixed on him. He reached into his pocket and retrieved a small leather wallet, setting it gently on the counter. He was about to speak when he heard the sharp, commanding voice of the security guard. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step away from the counter." The room tensed. The man blinked, clearly caught off guard. "Excuse me?" "I said step away." Finch's voice was firm, his posture rigid. His hand hovered near the baton on his belt. The bank teller, a young woman with auburn hair, looked between them, her fingers hesitating over the keyboard. Sir, is there a problem?" Finch's eyes never left the man. "We have to be cautious about people who don't belong." Silence. A ripple of disbelief swept through the customers waiting in line. A woman clutched her purse closer to her side. An elderly man frowned deeply. A mother hushed her child, who had turned to watch the scene unfold. The man, calm but visibly irritated, raised an eyebrow. "I'm here for business." Finch's lip curled. "Yeah? What kind of business?" Before the man could answer, Finch reached for his arm. The grip was firm, forceful. It was the kind of grip meant to send a message. A mistake. The man's expression darkened. He carefully removed his arm from Finch's grasp and straightened his suit jacket. He then reached into his inner pocket, not with the hurried movements of a man caught in trouble, but with the careful deliberation of someone about to unveil something devastating. A small black card. He placed it on the counter. The teller leaned in, eyes widening as she read the embossed gold lettering. Her breath hitched. Robert Finch's smug expression flickered with uncertainty. The teller swallowed. "Sir, She looked up at the man with newfound recognition. I had no idea. I sincerely apologize." The card bore the unmistakable insignia of diplomatic status, an emblem recognized worldwide. A diplomat. Finch's heartbeat stumbled. The man tilted his head slightly, observing the shift in the atmosphere with quiet amusement. "Now, are we still questioning whether I belong here?" The room felt like a vacuum, everyone watching, waiting, barely breathing. Finch's jaw tightened. That doesn't mean anything. Anyone could have a card like that." The man let out a low chuckle, void of humor. "You're right, but not everyone gets diplomatic immunity." The air in the bank thickened. The implications of those words sank deep. A sharp voice cut through the tension. The bank manager, a heavy-set man in a tailored gray suit, rushed out from his office, his face pale. "Sir, please, there's no need for any further misunderstandings. We deeply regret this incident." He turned to Finch, his expression now venomous. "Step back, now." Finch hesitated. His authority had never been questioned like this before, but he could feel the ground shifting under him. He looked back at the man he had humiliated, who stood there calm, confident, untouchable. And then, the diplomat spoke again. "I assume you have security cameras in this establishment?" The bank manager paled further. "Yes, sir." The diplomat smiled. A slow, knowing smile. "Good." Finch felt an unfamiliar sensation creep into his chest. fear. "This isn't over," the diplomat continued, his voice carrying the weight of certainty. "I have friends, and I assure you, they will be very interested in how I was treated here today." A chill ran through Finch's spine. He had heard of men like this, men who didn't need to raise their voices to destroy careers, men who operated in circles far beyond his reach. The diplomat turned back to the teller. "Let's proceed with my transaction, shall we?" The young woman, hands slightly trembling, nodded quickly. "Of course, sir." As she resumed typing, the room remained eerily silent. The customers, the employees, even the manager all watched, aware that they had just witnessed something monumental. As for Finch, he stood there frozen, his entire world crashing down around him. His years on the job, his reputation, none of it would matter now. Because when a diplomat speaks, the world listens. And when a security guard oversteps his bounds, the world watches him fall. The moment the diplomat resumed his transaction, Finch felt the weight of the eyes on him. The quiet hum of the bank had shifted into something oppressive, something sinister. His breath felt heavy in his chest, his mind racing through the repercussions of his actions. But this was only the beginning. As the teller processed the diplomat's transaction, the bank manager discreetly signaled for another employee to step into his office. A few moments later, the employee emerged with a phone in hand and handed it over. The manager, visibly sweating now, answered immediately. "Yes, sir," he said in a hushed tone. "He's still here." A long pause. Then his face drained of color. "Yes, understood. Right away." The diplomat remained composed as he slipped his transaction slip into his wallet and buttoned his suit. But Finch's instincts were screaming. Something about this entire situation wasn't right. Then the doors swung open. Two men in dark suits entered, moving with synchronized precision. They weren't police, and they weren't regular security. Finch had seen enough high-level operatives in the news to recognize them for what they were: government agents. The taller of the two approached the diplomat, flashing an identification badge so quickly that only the manager caught a glimpse of it. "Sir, we need you to come with us." The entire bank fell silent again. Even the customers who had begun whispering moments earlier held their breath. The diplomat's expression never wavered. "I assumed you would arrive eventually," he said smoothly, "though I expected a more discreet approach." Finch, despite himself, felt his pulse quicken. What was happening here? Why were government agents after this man? The shorter agent stepped forward, voice low but firm. "Now, sir, let's not make this difficult." The diplomat sighed, adjusting his cuffs. "Of course." He turned slightly and glanced at Finch. It wasn't the look of a man bested. No, it was something else, something foreboding. "You should pay attention, officer," the diplomat said, "because today you think you humiliated me, but you were merely a pawn in a much larger game." Finch's stomach twisted. The agents moved to escort the diplomat out. But just as they reached the door, a loud chime rang from the diplomat's pocket. The shorter agent froze, then exchanged a look with his partner. "It's him," the diplomat murmured, fishing his phone out with deliberate slowness. "I'd suggest you let me answer." The taller agent clenched his jaw but gave a small nod. The diplomat placed the phone to his ear. "Yes," he said calmly. "I understand." A pause. Then his mouth twitched into a knowing smirk. He handed the phone to the agent. "He wants to speak with you." The agent hesitated, then took the phone. The bank manager and Finch watched closely as he listened to the voice on the other end. His expression remained unreadable, but the longer he listened, the paler he became. Finally, he hung up and turned to his partner. "Let him go." The entire bank gasped. Finch stiffened. "What? But you just—" "Let him go." The agent's voice left no room for argument. The diplomat adjusted his jacket and stepped forward, retrieving his phone from the stunned agent's hand. "I told you, gentlemen, I am not the one you should be concerned about." With that, he walked toward the exit. But just as he reached the door, he turned back. "Oh, and Finch," he smiled. "You should start looking for another job." Then he was gone. Finch stood frozen, disbelief rattling his bones. Who the hell was that man? The agent sighed, rubbing his temples. Someone far more powerful than any of us realized. And now we have a bigger problem. The bank manager swallowed. What kind of problem? The taller agent's phone rang, and he answered it with a clipped, "Go ahead." Then his face turned ashen. He hung up and turned to his partner. "There's been an attack. It's happening now." The shorter agent tensed. "Where?" The answer sent a shiver through Finch's spine. "At the embassy, the very one he works for." A stunned silence fell over the bank. The diplomat had walked out of the bank moments ago. But whatever was happening now, it was already in motion. Finch suddenly felt very small. He had thought this was just another power play, another bureaucratic mess. But no, he had just become a witness to something much, much bigger. And for the first time in his career, he wasn't sure if he'd live long enough to regret it.